Today we're going to go over mistakes people make when setting up a slave cylinder type hydraulic clutch on a transmission. Are these mistakes that you have made or are making?
Greetings, fellow DIYer, and welcome to my video.
I've been selling hydraulic clutch kits for almost 25 years. Brackets just like the one you see there, or this unit right here. I have a whole assortment of clutch kits for T5 transmissions, for TKX transmissions, TKO, any number of applications, and you can find all that information on my website, but that's not why you're here. You're here because you're probably having problems setting up either one of my kits or a kit that you have designed yourself, and you're trying to figure out what went wrong in your hydraulic clutch setup. I'm going to throw a lot of information at you. Some of it is going to be strictly academic. There's not going to be anything to see. But we're going to talk about the biggest mistakes that I have seen in that 25-year period helping people troubleshoot their hydraulic clutch kits. The first mistake that I see, and I see this all the time, is bore size of the master cylinder and the slave cylinder. Now, I've got a hydraulic clutch 101 video that is dedicated to that very topic, so we're not going to go real deep into it. But there are two things that you need to know for a quick hit. First, in most cases, you want the master cylinder to have a smaller bore than the slave cylinder. And the reason you want that is it allows you to get things set up and have a softer clutch pedal. But there's a caveat. The master cylinder must have sufficient fluid volume to get the desired stroke at the slave. And that requires math. Now, if you're looking for that math and those formulas, that information is on my video that does talk about matching the master cylinder and slave cylinder. I also want to address the most common myth. The myth is that the master cylinder and the slave cylinder need to have the exact same bore. The reason this is such a huge myth and internet wisdom is because most of the time it works. Most of the time, if your master cylinder and slave cylinder are the same bore, you will get the system working. But again, it comes at the price of added clutch pedal effort. And if you're going with a hydraulic clutch, you're usually doing it to eliminate pedal effort. So do the math, watch the other video, because that's where the math is, and properly match your master cylinder and slave cylinder. Or better yet, leave a comment or contact me through my website, shoot me an email, and I will be able to do the calculations for you. Which brings me to my second thing. When I'm helping a customer troubleshoot, I always ask them, what is the bore and stroke of the master cylinder you're using? And 9 out of 10 times they come back with the master cylinder bore, but not the stroke. And because we are dealing with fluid volumes, we need the bore and the stroke. The bore alone does not cut it. The bore and stroke of the master cylinder results in a specific fluid volume, and that fluid volume divided by the area of the slave cylinder bore gives us a specific stroke. So you must have both pieces. The second thing that I see all the time is a performance clutch where a performance clutch is not required. Now, this is pretty simple. Someone is building a 289 or a 302 and the car is performance. They've put a lot of bells and whistles into it. They've added a lot of power adders. And so they think, I need a performance clutch. The reality of it is they probably don't. If you're making less than 400 horsepower, if you're running standard tires instead of slicks, if you're not racing, a stock type clutch is going to be more than sufficient. Why does it matter? Most cases, if you go with the performance part, you're getting a better part. Well, in the case of a hydraulic clutch, or any clutch for that matter, the performance part of the clutch comes from a stronger pressure plate. And that results in more effort being required to actuate the clutch. So this is a situation where bigger is not better. Getting a performance clutch just makes your left leg tired and doesn't add a whole lot. Now, again, if you're racing, if you've got 400 plus horsepower, if you've got really wide tires, okay, maybe you need a performance clutch. But the car at that point is probably not a daily driver. So just keep all that in mind. The next mistake that people make is in installing the fitting onto the slave cylinder. They'll take the fitting and they'll just screw it in. Now, in some cases, you can do that. Some cases, it's an inverted flare. But in other cases, not so much. Now, this uses what's called a bubble flare. And if you've never heard of that, I'm not surprised. It's not a real common fitting. It's kind of hard to make. It's a crush fitting, so once you tighten it down, it can't easily be reused without leaking. And frankly, it's an inferior way, in my opinion, to connect hydraulics. Nonetheless, this slave cylinder uses a bubble flare fitting. So what do we do in its place? Well, you've got a couple of options. The line kits that I sell come with inverted flare fittings that are the correct diameter and thread. And what I tell customers, I actually say this in the instructions, but to be completely honest, I have been guilty of not reading the instructions on more than one install. So the fact that my customers occasionally miss this part in the instructions is not lost on me. I can't expect people to read every word in the instructions when I don't often do it myself. So the solution is simple. There is a shoulder on the bottom of this. So if you're using the fitting that comes in my line kit, simply put a copper washer on there. If you don't have a copper washer or don't want to use a copper washer, solution number 2 is to get brake fluid safe thread sealant and use that. This has a very deep bore on it, so the inverted flare fitting that I sell doesn't come close to bottoming out. And that's why you can use the shoulder with a copper washer to seal it or the thread sealant. The next mistake, and this is the biggest mistake that I help people troubleshoot all the time, is getting all the air out. Customers are constantly contacting me. I'm not getting enough stroke at the slave. And I ask them to measure. I'm like, how much stroke are you getting at the slave? Now, assuming they have the correct master cylinder, because we've already talked about how the incorrect master and slave combo is going to create issues. Assuming they bought the master cylinder from me and have the correct master and slave, they should get the correct amount of stroke every time, which is 1 inch right here at the slave. And oftentimes they'll contact me and say, I'm getting 5/8 or 3/4. And my answer is, there's air in the system. And their answer is always, there's no air in the system. It doesn't feel spongy. And I'm like, well, that's great. But because the pressures inside the line are so much less, it's not going to feel like brakes. You're not going to get those same issues. Air in the system is simply going to reduce the stroke. Every time. They've come back to me, they've been like, okay, I've got the bubble out, now I'm getting the full 1 inch. So just keep in mind that hydraulics are absolute. You can take the fluid volume of your master cylinder and use it to calculate the exact amount of stroke you are getting at the slave. And if you're not getting that amount of stroke, there is for sure air in the system, with one notable exception, and that is a bypassing master cylinder. Now, you may be wondering, what's a bypassing master cylinder? Well, that's where it has an internal leak. Keep in mind, a slave cylinder will never bypass like a master cylinder because there is no internal seal. There's just the external seal. So if that seal fails, the slave cylinder just leaks. And frankly, that's what happens when a slave cylinder fails. They leak. That's the only thing that can go wrong on a slave cylinder. On a master cylinder, however, sometimes they will not hold pressure and there'll be an internal leak. And that's super easy to test. You simply depress the clutch, sit there for a couple of minutes, and have someone watch the clutch fork. If the clutch fork starts to move back, then the master cylinder is in fact bypassing, and that is why you're having issues. All right, everything else that I'm going to show you as far as mistakes that I have seen customers make has to do with this right here. And this is the slave cylinder push rod. Now, this is my special design of a slave cylinder push rod. We have a spherical bearing, we have an adjuster nut, and we have a jam nut. The first mistake I see is this. They install it just like this. Now, why do they install it like this? Because this is how I ship it. The jam nut really needs to go here. The reason I ship it like this is so it doesn't come apart, so that we don't lose this ball in shipping. But some customers think that because it fits through the hole, that the jam nut goes on this side, and it absolutely does not. The jam nut needs to go on this side so that you can tighten it all down. All right, with the slave cylinder push rod configured correctly, we can now look at a couple other mistakes that people make. The first one, if you look right here on the clutch fork, let's turn this so you can see, there are two holes, an inner hole and an outer hole. And if you read the instructions, again, I'm not harping on that, I'm guilty of not reading instructions, it clearly says to use the inner hole. But the outer hole is what the cable attached to. So if you have someone that's converting from a cable to a hydraulic clutch, they automatically assume that the outer hole is where the push rod is supposed to go. So let's install it that way. If you look, you will see that that push rod is at a terrible angle. And the problem with that is it creates side loading inside this slave cylinder. And that will, without a doubt, wear this slave cylinder out prematurely. I've had several customers set it up this way, and within a year had to replace their slave cylinder. The other issue is the inner hole on this clutch fork requires less stroke. So if you put it to the outer hole, that little extra stroke that is required also makes it more challenging to get the system set up. Also, the ball is fairly big and it does not fit very well into the cable pocket. It really is designed to go in this inner hole. So let's go ahead and set it up properly. All right. So this push rod is too long, and this is actually a mistake that people also make. They install it and they don't cut it. Again, this is in the directions. And what happens is the push rod will actually catch on the side of the bell housing, and this will cause this push rod to push into the side of the slave cylinder and will cause it to score the slave cylinder, resulting in a leak. Ultimately, that needs to be cut. Let me grab a shorter one that has already been cut. Now, the reason I send these long and ask people to cut them is because different applications require a different length push rod. And it's easier for me to make a one-size-fits-none push rod and then ask the customer to cut it. And it's really not that big a deal because most people that would do this install themselves have a hacksaw in their toolbox. All right. So here we have a push rod that has been properly trimmed. There are some reasons you would need different lengths. Sometimes the ball stud in the bell housing is a different length, which can affect where this fork protrudes from the bell housing when the throwout bearing engages with the pressure plate. Also, this bracket is designed to work with several different slave cylinders, and the different slave cylinders can require different length push rod. Again, that's why I make it long and allow you to cut it to length. This actually came out of my own car, so I know it's the right length. We get it into that inner hole and we get it set up, and everything is looking lined up and accurate. Now, again, we have the potential for another issue right here. Now, there is some slop up and down, and the reason for that slop is I don't have an input shaft on this transmission case that I'm using for mock-up. So there's nothing to locate this clutch fork in the correct spot. But when it is properly located in the correct spot, this push rod should be nearly parallel to the bore of the slave cylinder. The next mistake that I see people make is they don't fully bottom this piston out. And there's a couple reasons for that. The first is that they think there needs to be a gap between the throwout bearing on the clutch fork and the pressure plate. And why do they think that? Because that's how it was done for many, many years. Old school wisdom is your throwout bearing needs to not ride on the pressure plate all the time because it'll wear out the throwout bearing. What you have to keep in mind is a T5 setup like this one was designed for a cable clutch, and cables stretch, and cables require that the system is tight. That means the throwout bearing needs to be on the pressure plate all the time. So no gap is required. Don't make that mistake because then you're going to need more stroke than what the system will likely put out. And then lastly, when fully set up, you should be fully bottomed out in the slave cylinder and fully bottomed out up against the pressure plate. At that point, if you're getting the 1 inch, you should have enough stroke to actuate the clutch. And from there, a little preload can be added to adjust where the clutch grabs. Those are the basics. Those are the most common mistakes that I see on hydraulic clutches. Really, the system is very simple. You push fluid from one end, it causes an action in the other end. If you've made mistakes on your hydraulic clutch and I haven't mentioned them here, throw them down in the comments. Maybe they'll end up in a future video. Also, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to throw those down in the comments and I would love to get back to you.
If you like what you've seen, please click like. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe. Thanks for watching.